This is the Dewalt 3000 psi 1.1 GPM electric pressure washer. And in today's video, we're gonna be testing this thing out. We're gonna open it up, see exactly what it comes with, look at all the internals and the design of the unit, and then we're gonna test for the actual usable PSI and GPM to see if this thing's really an effective unit for what you need. Now this thing comes in with a pretty big price tag of about $450, so it's by no means a cheap pressure washer. Now they have a almost identical looking unit to this, but it's a 2100 PSI. I've done a review on that in the past and I really like that unit, so I have high hopes for this, but let's check it out. So let's go ahead and start by opening this thing up and checking it out. Now the opening is right on the side here, so we're gonna just go ahead and pop it open and see what we got. Now, one of the things that I liked so much about the 2100 PSI unit is how compact and how well this thing carries all of its own components. So the storage on board of this thing is phenomenal. Okay, so here it is. Bingo bango. Really cool unit. Again, looks really awesome, just like the 2100 did. Now, right off the bat, guys, the hose, everything is just kind of wedged in here with the cardboard packaging. Let me get this out and let's talk about the hose first things first, because if I remember well with the 2100 unit, the hose isn't the best quality. It's okay, it'll get the job done, but it's 25 feet long and it does kink, and it is extremely hard to get out of here. There we go, now that that's out of the way, now we can move with it. Now, as I said, 25 feet for this thing, and the connection for the hose, the outlet is right here. Your water inlet for your garden hose is on the other side. So I really like that. The in is on one side, out is on the other. I just think it keeps everything nice and clean. However, let's go ahead and look at the hose. The good thing is this connection point is an M22x14, meaning you can change out the hose very easily without any adapters. So as you guys can see, still just very jumbled up. And that's okay, because obviously the way it was stored, there's some memory into this line, it's just kind of being a pain. But when we check the flexibility of the hose, not great, and then boom, kinks right there, right? So let's do that again. I'm gonna go to a fresh point, okay? And now kinked here. So if you look at that, here, let me see if I can get a better view of it here for you. All right, so it kinked, and it is in the line. So there's memory to this. What that's going to do over time is that now that spot's kind of been compromised, and that over time is going to create a weak point within your hose and then cause potential blowouts, and then also just it being a pain in the butt to work with. Now, I always recommend the Uberflex hose. That thing is right here. You can get this in multiple different colors. They actually have at Walmart, I think it's a 30-foot option, I believe, but it's in a black colorway, I think, again, and it's from the Heart brand. But it is an Uberflex patented hose technology. But this one you can get right on Amazon. This one's 50 feet long. This is what I use all the time in my professional business, at my home, everything else. And as you can see, it is absolutely completely flexible. As far as kinking goes, you can get it to roll over on itself, but there's no memory in that line, so you don't have to worry about those blowouts over time. And again, this is that M22x14 connection point, so it plugs right into the machine. If you're interested in some other pressure washer upgrades, I made a video on that a while back, going over all my favorite upgrades to do. You know, quick connects, new foam cannons, new hoses, new pressure wands, everything that makes your life so much easier when you're dealing with these things. Okay, now continuing on, right on the front, you do have a little foam blaster. Now this doesn't seem to be, I mean, they made some effort, right? So if you look into here, it's very simple. There's no prongs. It's just, you can see a steel mesh in there. And then you can turn it. So you can do a horizontal and vertical pattern. This is not going to give you the most amount of foam though at all. It will apply soap onto the surface for sure, but not a true foam like an MJJC foam cannon would. And we'll test that side by side. We'll just go ahead and show you in a little while here, but that's a traditional foam cannon. This is my favorite one. Or this guy, they get the same amount of foam, so it's really a design choice for you. Now this thing just has a basic quick turn option, comes right off, so you just fill up your soap and water in there. Now you don't use all, you don't fill the whole thing up with soap, you can dilute it down. Because there's gonna be a lot of water going through this, you probably want more soap than you would out of a traditional foam cannon, but we'll test that, like I said. So nice little storage unit there for it. It snaps into place really well. Now let's get into the fun stuff. So you do have a power switch right here. Just a basic toggle on and off. You have your cord storage back here, and this is a 35-foot ground fault plug-in for you, so no worries there. You know, working around wet, you want that GFCI. Now when we fold it down here, this is where all the storage comes in. This is why this thing is so cool. So we pop this open, okay? We have our pressure washer gun. Now this is a phenomenal wand. This is the same one that comes on the 2100 PSI unit that looks like this, and I absolutely love it. Now, I have made a comment in the past about just screwing on a 1/4 inch connect onto the front here, and then using this as a stubby wand, which would be really, really cool. However, they use some sort of proprietary connection point here. I've gotten questions all the time, hey, what's the connection point for that 1/4 inch? I don't know. So I actually don't know if you can do that. The logic is there, like it seems like you should be able to. I haven't found it. I'm gonna do a little more research for you guys. I'll update you down the road if I figure that out. It does also have storage on the handle here. You have a 15, a 25, and a 40 degree. Now let's go ahead and check and see what size these are, because I'm hoping it's listed, and it's not listed. Usually stamped on the inner portion of the nozzle, it'll show the degree of the fan and also what size the orifice is. This does not, oh, this one does. Okay, the 25 does. So we're showing, nope, it's just a model number. Does not show the size. So in order to find out if these are different size orifices, I will have to test the PSI on each of them. So if we're testing the PSI and they are different, I'll test the GPM for each of them as well. Now also right here, if you guys can see, is your turbo nozzle. So you also get a turbo nozzle. And then let's go ahead and pull out the side here. You get the first part of the lance extension for your pressure washer gun. You would just take this piece. There's a nice rubberized O-ring there, so it should fit over nicely, and you shouldn't have to use Teflon tape. If you want to, it's always a good idea just to be safe, but you shouldn't have to. So there's that part. And then finally, the secondary part of the lance extension. This is where you get your 1/4 inch quick connect for all the nozzles and foam cannons. So with this one, you just pop off the back. It's just a little plastic cover, pop that off, insert it over the O-ring here, press it down, and then you're able to tighten the other part over it, and then it's all good to go. Now the only downside of this storage portion is in order to store the wand in there, you do have to break it down each time, so keep that in mind. Now I did notice something, if you guys remember when I was struggling to get the hose out, there's a latch on the side. I'm just a bit of a Munson there, so that's a really nice design feature, so really easy to access your hose. Could this fit an Uberflex hose? Let's find out, actually. Now again, this thing is a 1/4 inch thick by 50 feet long. Let me go ahead and roll it down here. So it may be a tight squeeze, but if it does fit, that would be really, really cool. It's definitely gonna be a much tighter fit, but will it work at all? Yeah, it sure will. There you go. So if you're concerned with that, yes, you can keep that stored on there. So really, really nice. Oh, and one last thing, guys, it does have a telescoping handle. Just a little button here. Pop up that, slides up, boom, and then you can wheel this thing around, no problem. Now, putting it back in, it's a little cumbersome, but it's there for you, so that's nice. All right, let's go ahead and hop outside. We're gonna plug this in, we're gonna test the decibel level, see how loud this thing is. We're gonna test the PSI and GPM of each of those nozzles. We'll manipulate that nozzle to some aftermarket ones I have with larger openings to see if we can make it more efficient for car detailing, because you want that PSI to be around 1100 or so. That's my preference at least, and as much GPM as you can get. And then we'll also test the amperage. This states it's a 15 amp machine, so if your home has a 15 amp breaker, you should be fine, but we'll test that to make sure. Now, a couple other components, guys. This machine, I don't know if it's a universal motor. I don't know if it's induction. It doesn't list it, so I believe it's a universal, but again, I don't know. We'll probably be able to tell that from the performance once you start manipulating the nozzle size. If it's an induction, it usually crashes pretty fast. So we will take a look at that. And then as far as the pump goes, it just shows that it's an axial pump. I don't know any more information than that. Really quickly, guys, I did notice right on the front here, it does show brushless, so that lends me to think that it is an induction motor. But again, we'll test it. All right, guys, so we've got the machine plugged in. It's powered on. The water is on and no leaks or anything like that, so that's good. We're gonna go ahead and pull the trigger. Just let the air purge out of the line. So you want to do this always just to keep the air bubbles out of the whole system, right? You're going through the motor and through the pump. So just to help prolong the life of it, just make sure there's no air in the line. We seem to be good. We're going to turn it on. Oh boy. That was a long buildup. I don't like that already, but we'll see if that's always like that. Turn it off. Does have the total stop system, so that is nice. Let's go ahead and throw in a nozzle. Let's go ahead and start off with we'll start off the 15 degree nozzle, because that's probably going to have if they're different size orifices, this one will be the smallest. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, pull the trigger, and test the PSI. Here we go. The machine doesn't Sounds like there's a vibration to it I don't necessarily like. So this is reminding me of the Greenworks jet flow technology, how the unit ramps up to its full speed. Usually they do that because it's a slower draw again on the amps. But again, we'll test the amps after this. But I just want to show you guys that we're getting about 2,600 PSI. Yeah, 2,600 PSI. So let me go ahead and show you that. Hopefully this will give you a good visual. Hopefully you can see that okay. Now, typically when we test these things, it'll kind of increase over time, especially even during the test, it'll increase a little bit, maybe to 2,650. Over time, as the pump breaks in, you can get a little bit more than that as well, so probably 2,700. So a decent amount away from the 3,000, but usually within about a 10% variance is kind of where it sits. So that would put us up at 2,700, so fair enough. Let's go ahead and test the GPM now of this nozzle. So I've got my measuring bucket here, so we're going to do that. We'll stick the nozzle into the bucket for 1 minute, let it run. That'll give us our gallons per minute rating. Before I do that though, let's go ahead and test the noise level of this machine. It's hard to do because you do pick up, the loudest part is the water actually coming out of the nozzle, so you have to take that into consideration. I usually sit about 3 feet away from the unit. Okay, we'll test the ambient noise right now. Ambient noise is averaging out at 49 decibels, so I'm going to take this, point this as far away as I can, and pull the trigger. And we're averaging out at 82 decibels, so it is a quieter unit. Usually, like a lot of the other units will be in that 83 to 85 range. Again, though, most of the noise is coming from the nozzle and not the unit itself, so these tests are good to know, but not super applicable. All right, guys, so now we're gonna go ahead and move on with the GPM test with the 15-degree nozzle, sticking it into the bucket. I have a stopwatch here. We're gonna run it for 1 minute, and here we go. All right, guys, so there is 1 minute. Now, I was monitoring the PSI. We are getting 2,700, so we're within that 10% range. Now, water flow, 4.5 quarts. No, yeah, 4.5 quarts. So I believe that is 1.2, let's see here. 4 quarts would be a gallon. So yeah, I think we're at 1.25. Hang on. I was almost right, 1.125. So we're getting accurate numbers within range, right? So right off the bat, we're at 2,700 PSI within that 10% variance, which is normal. Again, it may creep over that in time. And then it's rated for 1.1 GPM, and we're getting 1.125, so slightly better. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to the 25-degree nozzle. If we're getting that same 2,700 PSI, we don't need to test the GPM because then we'll know it's the same. But let's do this so we can be thorough in the test and see where we are at. So here we go. And no, we are different. So we are sitting at currently 2,100 PSI. Hopefully I can get this to focus for you. So 25-degree nozzle, 2,100 PSI. Let's go ahead and test the GPM. Once again, there's 1 minute. Now typically, guys, when you change the orifice size to decrease the PSI like it did, we should be getting more of a gallons per minute flow rating. And yeah, significant actually. We're at, let me let that settle and then I'll let you know. But it looks like we're about 5.5 quarts now, so a full quart increase. All right, guys, so there it is, 5.5 quarts now, or just barely under it, but we're giving it to 5.5. So with that, guys, with the green nozzle, the 25-degree nozzle, we are getting 2,100 PSI currently and 1.375 GPM, so not bad numbers. Let's go ahead and move on to the 40 and see what that's at. All right, guys, so switching over to the 40-degree nozzle now. Again, let's see if there's a difference here. I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger and take a look. And we're just above 1,700 PSI currently. Again, I'll kind of double check that while I'm testing the GPM. But right now, so you can see, right at that 1,700 PSI, just barely over. All right, now we're gonna do the GPM test with the 40-degree nozzle. Here we go. And there is 1 minute with the 40-degree nozzle. We've increased again. Not a full quart this time, I don't think. Somewhere around there, we're above 6 quarts, so give me a second. All right, guys, so as you can see, we're just barely above 6 quarts, so where I'm gonna type in 6 quarts to get the calculation, then just assume it's a little bit above that. Also, when I did do the test, I was monitoring it. It is slightly above 1700. We're gonna give it 1725 psi. All right, so now with 6 quarts of water in the bucket after 1 minute, that would be 1.5 gallons per minute at 1725 psi. So again, not bad numbers here, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and grab some aftermarket nozzles now and see if we can drop that PSI down even more. Again, for car detailing, I like it around that 1100, 1200 personally, with as much GPM as I can get. So let's see what this thing can do. Okay, I am back. So I've got 3 nozzles here, right? We have a 2.5, a 3.0, and a 3.5, all 40 degrees. Let's go ahead and just plug these in, see where we land. Again, I want it to be around that 1100, 1200 PSI. So we're gonna start off with a 2.5 and see what that gives us. It doesn't seem to like that. We're bouncing between 1500 and 1600, and you can hear it kind of bouncing around. So that's not the nozzle I want anyway. Let's go ahead and go to the 3.0 and see how the machine sounds with that. So we got the 3.0 here. Pull the trigger. Sounds much, much better. And we're sitting just above 1200 psi. So let's go ahead and go to a 3.5 and test that. Here we go. Wow, right at 1000 psi. So with that said, we're gonna test both the 3.0 and the 3.5. 2.5 was still too high and it was sounding weird. So let's go ahead and start off with the 3.0 nozzle. I'm gonna stick it in the bucket, we'll test the GPM, and again, I'll let you know the for sure PSI numbers as I monitor it. There's 1 minute. Again, yes, I can confirm, we're sitting at 1225 PSI. Let me let this settle and we'll take a look at the GPM rating. Wow, guys, wow. I'm shocked. We are at, I think, let it settle, but I think we're at 7 quarts. So here we go. Yeah, just barely shy of 7 quarts. So again, we're gonna just list it at 7 quarts and then assume a little bit less than that. 1225 PSI. So at 7 quarts, that comes to 1.75 GPM. So we're gonna drop that a little bit, give it to 1.7 GPM at 1225. Pretty impressive there. Let's go ahead and go to the 3.5. Again, that was getting 1000 PSI from what I saw. Let's test that for the GPM. There is 1 minute. We were spot on at 1000 PSI. We increased again, not a ton, but we increased again. Let this settle. Yeah, we're over 7 quarts now, but not by a lot. Actually, we're at exactly 7 quarts now. Yeah, we're exactly 7 quarts. Little spider crawling on my bucket. So we are now getting 1000 PSI at 1.7 GPM. All right, guys, so I put the top back on. Now there is a little nozzle adjustment. You can tighten and loosen. You want to crank it all the way down. Once it's cranked all the way down, it'll give you the most amount of foam. This one actually shows that it's opposite, so I'm gonna have to test both ways to make sure. Now let's talk about the amperage rating of the machine really quickly. I took some notes. With the 15-degree nozzle, which had the smallest orifice on the nozzle, the smaller the orifice, the more pull it's gonna draw on that machine. And it actually maxed out at 15.2, so slightly above that 15 amp. If you have an old house with a 15 amp breaker, you may have issues. I doubt it, you'll probably be okay. But as soon as you go to that 25, it'll drop under because, again, it's opening that orifice, creating less draw on the machine. Now, with the 3.5 orifice, the one I liked, where we're getting 1.75 GPM at 1000 PSI, we're only drawing 11.55 amps, so totally safe there. All right, guys, so here we go, plugging it in, okay? We're gonna pull the trigger and just show you the foam production here. Yeah, it's worse than I thought. Let's go switch it to vertical here. Try and go the other direction. Okay, so crank down all the way to the right is more foam. It shows backwards on this, but that is the most foam. However, still just extremely runny, like extremely runny. So let me go ahead and switch this into an actual foam cannon now and show you guys that, because it's a night and day difference. Hopefully you could even see that foam. I don't know, man, that was not much. So like I said, at home, I typically use this one just because I like the way it looks. So we're gonna pop this thing open. This gets the same exact amount of foam as the MJJC Pro version 2, which I showed you inside with that opaque bottle. So here we go, we're gonna pour it straight into the canister. Now I will tell you right now, this is 15 pumps of Geon Bathe in this amount of water for this foam cannon. we're gonna get really strong foam because these things get such amazing foam anyway. This will be a night and day difference between the other one. All right, guys, here we go. Everything's cranked down, and here we go. That's interesting. It's still not as good a foam as I would want. I'm surprised that it's not more than that. Let me go ahead and check the PSI with this. So we're sitting about 1700 PSI with this, and that's gonna give us plenty of flow. It should be better than that. All right, guys, so as far as foam production goes, we're just gonna say kind of I'm not impressed, even with the MJJCs, which again, this thing gets a ton of foam. Way better than the little one that it comes with, but still not the thick foam that I would expect. So I don't know. Just something to consider. Alrighty guys, so final thoughts on this unit. I'm a little bit confused by it. Pretty fantastic performance, but it really reminds me of some of the Greenworks JetFlow technology pressure washers, where you hear that ramp up, and what that's doing is a couple of things, but the main thing is that when you switch between the orifice sizes of the nozzles, it optimizes it so it gets the best performance for those. So again, it shows brushless. I don't know if it's a universal motor or a induction motor. I'm leaning toward an induction motor based off of the price of this thing and also that JetFlow technology. Usually with an induction motor, the performance drops off, but if it has that little calibration to it, that can make sense. So again, the performance numbers were fantastic. We were getting 2,700 PSI with that 15-degree nozzle, and then for detailing cars, we were with the 3.5 orifice nozzle, we were able to manipulate it, get it down to 1,000 PSI at 1.75 GPM, so pretty good. However, when I tested that with the foam cannon, the performance didn't really show through. I mean, those numbers are getting close to what the Active 2.0 is, but the performance didn't feel the same to me. So I don't know, those tests are great. They give us a great baseline across the board. However, in the performance test, we're actually spraying it onto the car. It didn't seem to match that. And again, it may be because of the JetFlow technology ramping up to what size orifice is in the foam cannon and then manipulating it. So you're not getting that true full 1,000 PSI, 1.75 GPM when you're using a foam cannon. So that's it, guys. I hope that video helps you. Now, if you're looking at a Dewalt pressure washer, I like this a lot. The design is fantastic. For me, I would just go with the 2100 unit. It's considerably cheaper. I think that one's, don't hold me to it, but I think it's $299. It's $300 versus this one's $450. So I would definitely go with the 2100 personally for my needs. You get all the other benefits of it. If you compare this one, if you need a high PSI unit, you compare this one to that 2800 PSI Pro electric pressure washer from Dewalt that I just did a review on. Again, personally, I'd go with this one. I don't know if the pump's rated for as long as that one is, but I do like all the other features of this one in comparison. So check this thing out. Also check out some of my Greenworks pressure washer reviews because I think they're a very similar comparison there, and I do like those machines a lot as well. That's it for today's video, guys. Please make sure to like the video, make sure you're subscribed, turn on that notification bell, and we will see you on the next one.